Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod. We have Andrew All with us today. He's a co-founder and CFO at a stealth startup. He's all about M&A, finance strategy, and AI. Andrew has a corporate background, worked at a bunch of big companies in the automobile sector, notably Western Digital, I see here, Ingram Micro. Happy Money was his last position. Still, he decided to launch a stealth startup that is backed by Village Global, Cooley, 10VC, and some angels. This podcast is presented to you by podpar.com. If you want to start a podcast, get some leads, get some investors to invest in your company, in my opinion, podcast is the best way to go with that. You can just target them via cold outreach and run a podcast and then pitch them on the back end of that podcast. So if you want to learn how to do that, you can go to podpar.com. Andrew, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you've been up to as of late.
Thanks, Charles. Really appreciate you having me on your podcast. Super excited to be here. As you mentioned, I am currently the CFO and co-founder of a stealth startup. It's largely focused on a AI platform for private credit firms to help them create detailed verified financial models, cap tables, and deal memos. We launched the business in June of 2024. Prior to that, I was the head of corporate development at Happy Money, working closely with the CEO and the leadership team there on the sale of the business to TrueStage, in addition to a very, very large private equity firm. After we sold the business, my CEO, myself, our head of product, and one of our engineering execs, we got back together, talked about what we really wanted to do, different pain points, especially pain points that we experienced raising capital at Happy Money, in addition to selling the business, and really saw a big opportunity to leverage AI to tackle that pain point. Prior to Happy Money, I spent the majority of my career, to your point about being in enterprise tech at Western Digital. I was on the automotive tech side at Hyundai, in addition to Ingram Micro. I spent the majority of my career in corporate development strategy, M&A, largely around vertical focuses of business intelligence and analytics, cloud stack, and nascent data storage solution. And then previous to that, I kicked off my finance and accounting career in corporate finance and internal audit.
Interesting. Tell me a bit more about Happy Money. Oddly enough, it's the first time that I hear about them, but raise a bunch of money. Seems to be like a Klarna, if you want, right? Some company that funds your personal purchases. Tell me a bit more about that company and why it's so impressive.
Yeah, I think it was a really great experience for me. Prior to that, even though we had funded startups or we acquired startups or acquired businesses, you really have an arm's length view on what happens inside of a high growth business. So that was my first transition into a private company that's venture backed, relatively late stage. When I joined, we were transitioning from Series C to Series D. But really, the business model was very impressive. It was largely around creating an unsecured loan product. That's a two-sided platform. So on one side of the platform, you have credit unions. And on the other side of the platform, you have Gen Zs and millennials. And the pain points that we were solving on both sides were, for the credit unions, their bread and butter is largely around automotive and mortgages. And, unsecured loans provide them with access to a instrument with 3 times the normal yield that they normally would have. Two, most millennials and Gen Zs don't think about credit unions when they want to apply for an unsecured loan. So we gave them access to a new set of customers that they generally wouldn't have access to, who are digitally native. And then the win on the consumer side was, because credit unions are not for profit, we're able to provide them with a very, very competitive rate relative to the banking peers.
Right. And your co-founder, Jeff, you seem to have met him there. Tell me a bit more about Jeff Winner.
Oh, Jeff Winter. I could gush about Jeff all day, honestly. He incredibly talented. He uh, I believe he has a double undergrad from MIT engineering. He also has a master's degree. He had sold a business to Netscape. He's had leadership positions at Uber, Twitter, Stripe as well, where he was head of engineering at one point. He also led the team that built the Apple Card at Goldman Sachs. So just an incredible background. So when he joined Happy Money, he was our CTO. And then from there, he transitioned over to, I believe, like COO, CEO. And when Jeff took over, no disrespect to anybody, because I think being a co-founder, it's very, very hard to manage and scale a business. So I understand that pain point very well. But I think Jeff's breadth of experience and technical background really allowed us to kind of hit that next growth point. We started taking off, we went from $100 million in loan volume to about almost $300 million in loan volume over a 6-month period. I thoroughly have enjoyed working with him. And when there was an opportunity to work with him again and really partner with him on co-founding an AI business, it just made perfect sense to me.
Right. And whose role is it to actually build the app, and how many co-founders in total?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. So credit to Jeff for putting together an amazing team. There's 4 co-founders. So Jeff Winter is our CEO. We have Alex Berman, who is our chief product officer. And then Danielle Davidian, she is our chief science officer.
Interesting. And where did you get the idea from? If you could explain it in a couple of words.
Yeah, I think after we left Happy Money, so after we sold the business to Happy Money, we were just playing around with the different LLMs out there, and really just tinkering with it, seeing what the capabilities look like. And as I started to get smarter about it and pressure test the capabilities, I was pleasantly surprised to learn that we were able to kind of wrangle it in a way where it could perform a lot of the workflows and the work streams and responsibilities of somebody in an M&A capacity. And then from there, we started pressure testing even more, and then took a look at the market size to see if there's really a big opportunity, or as big as we thought there would be, right? To also pressure test our own assumptions. And after that, I think the rest is history.
Right. Why the stealth strategy?
I think that's a fantastic question. I think part of it is we're still getting off the ground, trying to figure out what name we wanted to go with the company, with branding. 2, there's a bit of it gives us a little bit of time to really kind of build the foundation in a strong way that you may not have the capability to build if you go to market right away.
Right. And you're launching officially in a couple of weeks from now. You're going to have your marketing launch. What's planned for this, and what's your strategy to make the greatest splash possible?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, really that's being headed up by Alex, our chief product officer. He's doing a fantastic job on that front. Just really building out the assets for our decks, our logo, fonts, colors, in addition to thinking about, okay, are there different websites that we want to kind of have a big splash on? In addition to, is there an event that we want to time our marketing strategy to as well? So those are things that are kind of running through our mind. And yep.
Why did you decide to launch a company and not continue in the corporate world? Because a guy of your background, I mean, you've spent over 10, 15 years in in corporate pretty much your full career. Like most of you folks stay working in companies, right, in the golden shackles. So what prompted you to launch?
Yeah, I think it's a couple things. That's a great question, by the way. So I grew up in a household full of entrepreneurs, and it's not like nothing fancy. My family immigrated here after the Vietnam War, and although they had a lot of like entrepreneurial spirit in Asia when they came here, really their opportunities were slightly different. But the conversations we had at home and the culture that we had like fostered at home, was constant with our culture back in the old country. And so, my family is real strong entrepreneurial spirit. They are all like business owners or entrepreneurs of their own. So at a very young age, I would hear and talk about like business, like either building a business, managing a business at an early age. So I think that kind of like planted the seed for me. Two, I had an opportunity to build a venture capital practice at Ingram Micro. And this was really not really it wasn't by design at first. So when I was in corp dev there were a lot of startups that were knocking on our door and asking us, hey, look, would you like to invest in our business? And we would go through the process of, assessing them, going through diligence, and, going through that process raised the question of, hey, is this something we want to entertain? And then two, if we want to entertain this, who else is doing it? Three, could we apply a portfolio management approach where it's more holistic instead of just, assessing a startup at different points in time, holistically review all the potential targets out there, all right, to kind of broaden really our target range in addition to opportunities. And so my boss, Paul Yu, just incredible guy, great mentor of mine, asked me, why don't you go do some research? So from there, I found this report about the birth of Intel Capital. And, it started with two individuals, and they had about like $5 million worth of capital at that time, which translated to approximately like 8.2 million in 2012 or so. And it kicked off about a 2.5-year journey where I would just attend different events, educate myself on like how the venture capitalists were approaching, like fundraising, how they were approaching like assessment of targets, how they were approaching like diligence and co-investing as well, right? And that experience was just, how do I describe it? Very fulfilling, very different from my corporate role. And although I enjoyed all the different pieces of building, like my career up in accounting, finance, corp dev, M&A, and strategy, that gave me a very different experience. And like it would be almost another 10 years until like I co-founded a business. But that kind of gave me like a gut check for myself.
Right. And tell me the actual tool that you're building, like what's the AI component into it? Where are you using AI at various layers of your tech stack?
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic question. And for us, I think a lot of it is like there is concern, and I mean, amongst folks who are building like AI agents where the AIs can outpace you, right? And so how do you build a moat around that so that as the AIs evolve, you scale with them? So for us, I think sitting on top of the AIs and being able to switch off between the various offerings out there is really important to us. To leveraging the AI to query data for specific tasks that we think it really excels in, and then building our own proprietary models for like calculations, for ingestion. That's how we think we're able to kind of put a thicker wrapper around the AIs.
And ultimately, the tool, it would evaluate my business at all layers, and then it would loan me capital. All right, is that what it would do?
Apologies, could you say that again?
Yeah, it would evaluate the worth of my business, your tool, and then it would loan out money out of that data, right?
So our customer base, our initial customer base is going to be the private credit firms themselves. And so for them, they would have access to proprietary information from customers who want to take a loan from them. So historically, if I wanted a loan from a venture debt firm, I would go to them and then we'd sign an NDA, we'd go through the diligence process. And if they believe that this is a worthwhile investment for them, then the funds flow with her, right? And through that process, there's a lot of updates, a lot of different files, mismatching numbers potentially. Completely understand, because you're trying to build the plane while you're flying it on the private company side. So for our platform, I think really kind of creating an analyst view for the private credit firms to go in and view the financials, the cap tables, and deal memos in a way that is intuitive to them, but also automated via AI. That's one part of the platform we're building. The other piece of it is the issuer view. So the private companies themselves that are seeking capital, they can go in and they can drop in their diligence documents into a virtual data room. So that VDR gets fed and everything is kind of housed within that platform itself.
Right. And right now, how is it done? Is it a good old human reviewing the application manually? Is that how it's done?
Yeah, it's a bunch of incredibly talented, very, very smart folks who spend a lot of money going to business school or have a ton of experience in investment banking and private equity, going in and reviewing these documents, pulling them, looking at thousands of pages of information and trying to make sense out of it. And so I think a general timeline is about 60 hours or so to consume a data room. And for us, we have been able to cut that time down to about 30 minutes of it to ingest to about 4 minutes to spit out an artifact that we should be populating for a prospect.
It's crazy to think that humans are still doing that. Imagine if the bank gets 10, 50, 100 of these per day, how much cost that would incur. It's pretty insane. So how do you handle that private information, that confidential information? That must be a pretty important component of selling your tool here.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I think we just hired our CTO from Goldman Sachs. His name is Matt Rothstein. He's got an incredible background in engineering and data science. And so, the combination of Jeff, Danielle, and Matt, their backgrounds at Goldman, working on the Apple Card itself and the data security requirements of a top tier bank like Goldman. I think that kind of gives our prospects a lot of comfort in knowing that they've done it before. In addition to Alex, who had worked at Blend, and which is really a two-sided platform for digital mortgages in a similar fashion. So he's seen it before, he's done it before, and I think the combination of this group that's been put together is really giving people a lot of confidence that we can do this.
Interesting. So what are your top goals for this year? Are you raising more money?
I think that is a topic of conversation, but for us right now, it is we are going through commercial conversations with our first potential customer right now. So we're trying to wrap that up, and then we have prospect calls at different points of the sales funnel with various individuals. That I think really the balancing act of onboarding sales and new customers with our value of offering a high quality product is top of mind for us. And if we can get those two things out the door this year, then the conversation of raising a follow-on, our next round, becomes more realistic.
Right. And customer acquisition, is that a matter of just knocking on the door of various banks like Goldman and so forth? How do you uh, treat and strategize GTM in your case?
Yeah, this is a really unique space we're in because our customers can be our investors or can be our future acquirers. And that that world is largely a relationship business. And we are fortunate enough, in addition to our GTM specialist here, where we've got a group of folks who are great at like sourcing through our relationships, our past relationships, our current relationships. We're all pretty seasoned as well. So I'm almost 20 years in my career. Jeff is we Jeff is, gosh, like 40 years into his career. So and similar with Alex, Danielle, and Matt, we're all very late in our careers. So we've been fortunate enough to build like a strong network, and that network has enabled us to really have credibility when we either knock on the doors of these prospects ourselves, either through a cold blast or through our network or an intro to an intro.
Love it, Andrew. Where can people find out more about you?
Follow us on LinkedIn. I think that's probably like the best starting point. And once we start with our marketing effort, then we'll have our live website up, and it'll be absolutely official.
Well, good luck with the launch. That was Andrew and Charles for another CEO Wisdom